This is just a quick question about pollution in the atmosphere, which is on chemistry paper 2. So, the combustion of fuels is a source of atmospheric pollutants. Methane is a fuel. Balance the equation for the combustion of methane. So, this first question, you don't actually have to know anything about the atmosphere, pollutants, and that. We're just being asked to balance a chemical equation. Now, balancing a chemical equation is exactly the same as balancing a seesaw. You would need the same on both sides. So all I want to do is add numbers onto these lines to make it so I've got the same on both sides. So if you look on the left-hand side, I've got 1C. If you look on the right-hand side, I've also got 1C. So my C's, my carbons are fine. If I look on the left-hand side, I've got 4 H's. If I look on the right-hand side, I've only got 2. So I need to times this by 2, because 2 times 2 is 4. I've now got 4 H's on the left and 4 H's on the right. But now I need to balance my oxygens, and the way they've given me a line there tells me that I'm going to have to multiply this. So I've probably got more on the right-hand side at the moment. I've got 2 oxygens here, and I've actually got 2 oxygens here. There's 1 shown there, but this whole thing is multiplied by the 2 I put. So I've got 2 carbons there, and I've actually got 2 here. 1 times this big 2. So I've got 4 on this side. Now at the moment, I've got 2 here. So I need to double that to make it 4. So I'm going to times this by 2 as well. So if you now look, I've got 1C on each side. I've got 4 H's on each side. And I've got 4 O's on each side as well. So that's now balanced. That's that one done. Didn't need any knowledge of atmosphere or pollutants. Now, next question. Many fuels are mixtures. Petrol and diesel are mixtures of hydrocarbons. The table below shows properties of petrol and of diesel. So it says petrol, range of number of carbon atoms in the hydrocarbon molecule. And then I've got range of boiling points in degrees C, and I've got that for petrol and diesel. And the question is, compare the properties of petrol and diesel, use the table above. Again, this question doesn't require me to actually know anything in advance about hydrocarbons, petrol, diesel, the atmosphere, pollutants. Everything I need is in the table. So I've got 2 different things the table tells me about and 2 marks. So I'll start with the first one. So range of number of carbon atoms in hydrocarbon molecule. Well, diesel's numbers are bigger. Diesel has a bigger range of number of carbon atoms in hydrocarbon molecule. Now, even I think that is a horrible sentence. Don't fully follow it, but it doesn't matter. All I have to do to get the mark, diesel has a bigger, and then I just copy what they've said, whether I understand it or not. Bigger range of number of carbon atoms in a hydrocarbon molecule. You would write it neater than me. So there's 1 mark, and I've just said what that row tells me. Next one, range of boiling points. Well, again, diesel's is bigger. So diesel has a higher excuse me, range of boiling points. So that's 2 questions now where I actually didn't really need to know any chemistry. I needed to know sort of a bit of maths and balancing on the first one, and I needed to be able to read the numbers from a table in the second one. It then says the gases released when a fuel is burnt in a car engine may include oxides of nitrogen, carbon monoxide, water vapour. What chemical element do all these gases contain? Well, my first clue is that this has oxide and that also has oxide. Now, water doesn't have oxide in its name, but if you think about what the chemical formula of water is, H2O, the O stands for oxygen. So I've got oxide, oxide, and we know there's oxygen in here. So all of these contain oxygen. I had the clue in the name if I wasn't sure, but I did have to know for that last one. That made it slightly more trickier. But that clue in the name was what helped me the most. So use everything you're given to try and find the clues. When diesel burns in car engines, oxides of nitrogen are produced. Where does the nitrogen come from? Now, I do just know the answer to this, but again, I could have an educated guess if I wasn't sure. I'm burning diesel in a car engine. So it's asking where does the nitrogen come from? Well, it's got to be something that is also in the car engine. The only other thing that's also in a car engine, other than the diesel that's been put in, air. There's air in everything. It's getting it from the air. Now, I did already know that because I know most of the air is nitrogen. That is a fact you need to learn. The air is something like 78 or 79% nitrogen. But just with a little bit of thought, well, what else is in an engine? I could sort of have an educated guess. I wouldn't know it was right, but I have that educated guess. And it's only 1 mark, 1 word, done. I should probably put the air to be a bit more grammatically correct. Done, didn't matter. When diesel burns, particulates may be produced. What environmental effect do particulates from burning diesel cause? Now, again, this one does require a little bit of knowledge. Particulates are just little particles. That's it. But they're little particles like in smoke and things. If you were surrounded by smoke, well, everything would go a bit darker because the smoke would be blocking the light. So particulates cause global dimming. Little bits of smoke in the atmosphere blocking some light, global dimming. That one is one you kind of got to know. It'd be hard to hint to that one. Then, carbon monoxide may be produced when diesel burns. Give one reason why carbon monoxide is difficult to detect. Now, again, I don't really need to know about carbon monoxide. I can use my common sense on why a gas would be difficult to detect. Well, there's 2 reasons why it would be hard to know a gas is there. Either I couldn't see it or I couldn't smell it. That's why I wouldn't be able to detect a gas. So I don't need to know specifically about carbon monoxide. Now, both of those are correct answers, so I'm just going to put it has no smell. But remember, I could also put it's colourless, because then I wouldn't be able to see it. Either of those are fine, and that's just me thinking, why is it difficult to detect a gas? Explain why water vapour and not liquid water is produced when diesel burns. So again, this is a bit more of a common sense question. Why is water vapour, also known as steam, produced and not a liquid water? Well, it's being burnt, it's going to be hot. Steam is made when things are hot. So the fuel burns at a high temperature because we know it needs to be hot to make steam. But it's 2 marks. That's only going to get me 1 mark. So what other information can I add? Well, yeah, it's going to burn at a high temperature, but it must burn at a temperature so high that that liquid water is boiled. So the temperature must be higher than the boiling point of water. So the fuel burns at a high temperature, higher than the boiling point of water. Last one. Sulfur is a common impurity in diesel. Explain why this causes an environmental problem. Now, this does require a bit of my background knowledge, but again, if the sulfur's in the diesel and I'm going to burn it, when I burn things, they normally join with oxygen in the air. So when the sulfur burns, it's going to make sulfur dioxide. Now, this is where my knowledge needs to come in because I need to know what is the environmental problem caused by sulfur dioxide. So I am required to know sulfur dioxide causes acid rain. So I've got 2 marks so far. I know that sulfur is going to make sulfur dioxide. There's 1 mark. I know this causes acid rain. That's another mark. But this is a 3-mark question. And I need to know the environmental problem. So I need to say, well, why is acid rain a problem? Now, there's loads of reasons why acid rain is a problem. I could put any of them. I could say it damages buildings. If it gets in lakes, it can harm fish. It can harm trees. Any of these things I can put. I'll go with the fish one. So in lakes, the acid rain can harm fish. So as I say, there's loads of bits I could put for that last one about how acid rain affects the environment, but there's my 3rd mark. So from that question, I hope you can see that there's some things you can sort of work out as you go, using your other knowledge, not necessarily exact knowledge of the chemistry topic.